August 18, 2025, is a date highlighted in bold on calendars used by legal teams, news outlets, and social media, symbolizing a pivotal moment in a story that has captivated both the hip-hop community and the legal system. On that day, Tory Lanez, whose real name is Daystar Peterson, will return to a Los Angeles courtroom to request that a panel of judges either overturn or lessen his 10-year prison sentence, which was imposed after his conviction in the highly publicized shooting case involving Megan Thee Stallion. Welcome to Celebrity Cookies, where the tea is always hot and the stories come with sprinkles of surprise. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your take on the story. To grasp the importance of this moment, we need to go back 5 years to a night in late July in Hollywood. An argument broke out in Megan Thee Stallion's SUV as it slowly moved through traffic. Megan, already an established star, was celebrating after a studio session, and Lanez, who was enjoying rising fame, was with her. However, things took a disastrous turn when gunfire interrupted the evening's festivities. Megan was left injured, while Lanez fled the scene. Later, the Los Angeles police found that he had a shattered foot and a wounded hand, injuries consistent with having fired a semi-automatic weapon. In the months that followed, rumors circulated. Lanez denied any wrongdoing, while Megan was initially reluctant to speak out, only confirming in interviews that she had been shot in the foot. Her decision to name Lanez as the shooter days later sparked one of the most sensational celebrity trials of the decade. Cameras filled the courthouse hallways, fans took sides, and social media turned every piece of testimony into a trending topic. Lawyers exchanged pre-trial motions and sharp press releases, and every interview, song lyric, and Instagram post seemed like it could serve as evidence. When the trial finally commenced in December 2022, the stakes were incredibly high. The prosecution depicted Lanez as a jealous individual, angry over another man's date, and driven by a wounded ego. They brought in ballistic experts, forensic technicians, and audio analysts, presenting evidence such as sports drinks contaminated with gunshot residue, claiming Lanez had filled the SUV with his own blood. Megan testified, tears streaming down her face, her voice steady as she recounted her pain and fear. The defense attempted to undermine her credibility, highlighting inconsistencies in her account and suggesting that the shooting was an accidental result of panic. They argued that witness testimonies were unreliable and maintained that there was reasonable doubt. In December, the jury convicted Lanez on all 3 charges: assault with a semi-automatic firearm, negligent discharge of a firearm, and carrying a concealed, unregistered weapon. This verdict quickly changed the narrative. Headlines declaring Tory Lanez guilty appeared across both music and mainstream media. Social media erupted with reactions. Some viewed it as justice for Megan, while others mourned the conviction that would send Lanez, a young black artist, to prison for 10 years. This sparked intense discussions about the appropriateness of intertwining rap feuds with legal matters, the power dynamics between influential women and men, and racial bias within the justice system. The sentencing hearing in August 2023 felt like the conclusion of a seemingly unending trial. Lanez appeared before the judge, bruised, worn out, and defiant. His lawyers appealed for leniency, highlighting his charitable efforts, youthful mistakes, and mental distress. The prosecution countered by emphasizing the seriousness of shooting a woman in cold blood and the necessity for accountability. Ultimately, the judge sentenced him to 10 years in prison, along with 3 years of supervised release, citing the harmful message that unpunished gun violence sends. Now, on August 18, 2025, Lanez's legal team will argue that his trial was flawed and that new evidence warrants a reevaluation. They will contend that crucial evidence, text messages, social media posts, and witness testimonies, was improperly admitted. They will claim that the prosecution exceeded its bounds by influencing the jury's emotional reactions instead of adhering strictly to the facts. They will present affidavits suggesting that another individual, a third party, may have been the one who fired the weapon. They will also challenge the harshness of a sentence, referencing similar cases that received lighter penalties. Amidst all this, there's a scandalous subplot. In May 2025, Lanez was viciously stabbed by another inmate at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi, suffering 14 wounds, 2 collapsed lungs, and life-threatening injuries. News of the assault led to a wave of public sympathy. Fellow artists, including Drake, Nicki Minaj, and even Megan, who issued a carefully crafted statement, called for compassion. A Change.org petition advocating for a pardon garnered over 268,000 signatures, citing the attack and Lanez's ongoing rehabilitation as reasons to reconsider his situation. Lanez attorneys will also argue for credit for the months he spent in solitary confinement recovering from the attack, as well as for the significant good behavior credits he has earned while incarcerated. They will highlight his efforts in teaching literacy and mentoring younger inmates, his musical contributions even while in prison, and his attempts to make amends through video messages expressing regret for his past mistakes. However, the appeal encounters significant challenges. Appeals courts typically do not overturn sentences unless there is clear evidence of misconduct or legal mistakes. Prosecutors will argue that the evidence against Lanez was compelling, citing blood-stained car interiors, ballistic tests, and Megan's credible testimony that created a consistent narrative. They will assert that the jury received proper instructions, that Lanez's right to a fair trial was respected, and that his sentence adheres to legal guidelines. For many observers, August 18th represents a critical turning point. If Lanez manages to obtain even a slight reduction in his sentence, a few years cut off, it could revitalize his music career and spark renewed discussions about celebrity justice. Conversely, if the appeal is entirely rejected, Lanez could spend an additional 9 years in prison, likely emerging in his mid-40s, marking a stark contrast to the promising future once anticipated for him. Beyond the personal implications, the appeal carries wider significance. It will reignite discussions about how the justice system addresses cases involving celebrities and issues of gender-based violence. This situation will compel journalists, fans, and policymakers to grapple with difficult questions regarding the balance between evidence and emotion, the credibility of survivors versus legal standards, and the intersections of fame, race, and law. Megan Thee Stallion's outspoken support for survivors of gender-based violence, and her determination not to be silenced, adds complexity to the situation. She has maintained her dignity, choosing not to take pleasure in Lanez's downfall while also dealing with her own post-traumatic stress and the difficulties of revitalizing her career. Her legal team is closely monitoring the appeal, prepared to return to court to defend her integrity if Lanez's team revives claims that she consented or was dishonest. Fans are already speculating across social media. Some are pledging their unwavering support for Lanez, viewing him as a victim of an overly aggressive system. Others argue that Megan deserves steadfast protection, and that any effort to revisit the case disrespects survivors everywhere. The comment sections have turned into a battleground, with concert promoters debating whether an overturned verdict could allow Lanez to tour sooner, music critics discussing whether his next album should be released, and legal experts analyzing every aspect of the appellate process. Radio hosts are lining up interviews with Megan's attorneys, Lanez's lawyers, cultural commentators, and advocates for victims' rights, all eager for airtime. Documentary teams are collecting materials, anticipating that the upcoming hearing in August could be as significant as the original trial. Even jurors from the 2022 trial have been approached by producers, asked to share their thoughts on their deliberations and the impact of deciding a person's future based on a late-night shooting. As August 18th nears, the pressure intensifies. Lanez continues to post video messages, his face looking thin, his voice calm, stating that he is only seeking a fair process. "I'm not asking for special treatment," he asserts. "Just the same justice that everyone deserves. If I did something wrong, I'll admit it. But if my trial had issues, I deserve another chance." Meanwhile, voters in California are getting ready to go to the polls in November. Conversations about criminal justice reform, the power to grant pardons, and the authority of parole boards are making headlines. Lanez's appeal is becoming part of a broader discussion on mass incarceration, particularly as it relates to mental health, addiction, and systemic bias. On the morning of August 18th, journalists will fill the courthouse hallways with coffee in hand. Cameras will capture Lanez as he arrives in an orange jumpsuit, his face reflecting the time he has served. Megan Thee Stallion's team will take their seats nearby, advocates holding notebooks. Judges will wear black robes and call the courtroom to order. Then the arguments will commence. Lanez's lead attorney will rise to outline the alleged errors from the trial. The prosecutors will counter to uphold the original verdict. Both sides will reference laws and precedents, navigating complex legal terminology. Those outside the courtroom will listen to audio feeds approved by the bailiff. Social media will buzz with real-time updates. By the end of the day, the arguments will wrap up, but the waiting will begin, as judges may take weeks or even months to deliver their decision. No matter the verdict, August 18th will signify the end of one chapter and the beginning of another in the Tory Lanez, Megan Thee Stallion saga. A potential 10-year sentence is at stake, with a career hanging between condemnation and redemption. The pursuit of justice by a survivor and the quest for a fair process by a defendant will unfold under intense public attention. In the realm of contemporary celebrity, few events rival the tension of a court appeal involving some of hip-hop's biggest names. However, on August 18th, the stakes will extend beyond music sales and streaming figures. Justice will once again be on trial, and millions will be watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on the story.